Good afternoon, members, and welcome to the Policy and Resources Committee meeting today on the 18th of September 2025. As members are aware, the public element of today's meeting is being live streamed, and those participating in the meeting have given consent to their inclusion. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Town Clerk, and a very good afternoon to all our members of the committee, to the officers, and of course those members of the public who are watching this meeting virtually. To this first Policy and Resources Committee meeting after the summer recess. So, as I said in court, I hope you all come back refreshed and revived, ready for a busy autumn of work that this committee will have to discharge. And we've got a lot to cover this afternoon, including some two important items in the confidential session. So I'd just like to remind members of my usual policy that unless you gave notice by the Town Clerk's deadline, we won't be discussing starred information items. As you know, information items, if you don't indicate in advance that you wish to speak on them, we will just take it as read. Similarly, if you didn't submit any questions, which you didn't, we won't be accepting any in the meeting, as you know. So thank you. With that, let's move on to item one. Apologies, Town Clerk, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies for absence from the Lord Mayor, Munsa Ali, Emily Benn, Titus Brook, Anne Holmes and Imam Yurvalem.
Thank you very much, Town Clerk. Item two is members' declarations under the Code of Conduct in respect of items on the agenda. Are there any that anyone wishes to disclose at this point on today's agenda? Yes, indeed. Mr. Goodman.
Chair, I don't know if I'm supposed to or not. Oh, I've got to stand up, haven't I?
You have, sir.
It's been recess, hasn't it? But I am now chair of COLAT, and we might be talking education later on the agenda, so I suppose I should declare that.
Indeed, and may we congratulate you on becoming chair of COLAT.
That's really why I mentioned it, Chair.
Of course it is. Anyone would think you and I were double act, and we prepared that one, Steve. Item three, Town Clerk, please.
Item three is various sets of minutes of previous meetings and meetings of the subcommittees, starting with our minutes of July.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Members, are there any comments on the accuracy on the minutes from our meeting in July, last meeting of this committee? Are you happy to agree them as an accurate record of what took place? Thank you very much indeed. And then Town Clerk.
Items 3B to E are for information only and were included in the separate pack.
Yeah, and they're all asterisks. So as you know, they are dealt with by the individual committees, but they're there for your information at this meeting. So let's move on to the substantive items. Item 4, Town Clerk, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 4 is the EDI subcommittee name change. As noted in the public summary of June's in-quorum meeting of the Equality, Diversity, Inclusion Subcommittee, which was item 3B, members of the subcommittee believe it would be appropriate to update its name to reflect the current work being undertaken by officers.
Thank you, Town Clerk. I'm going to invite my Vice Chair, Deputy Caroline Haynes, who serves as the chair of the EDI subcommittee, to speak on this and just to explain a little bit more about it. So, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is essentially about process, and the proposal, as you've heard, is to add equity to the title of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee to become the Equity, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee. The rationale behind this is that the CSO added equity to the officer portfolio when responsibility was moved to CSO in November 2023, and it was a gap that didn't reflect best practice in terminology. So the EDI sub agreed the proposed new direction to include equity as part of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion portfolio in early 2024, and this brings the work of the committee into greater alignment with member governance and officer activities. So on behalf of the EDI committee, we're putting forward today a verbal request to policy that moving forward from now, we recognise that this change will have implication for other committees. So if the committee agrees, then we ask for delegated authority to amend the terms of reference to reflect the new name. And finally, in addition to the amending the name of the subcommittee, I, with subcommittee members, will direct officers to review the subcommittee terms of reference and to provide recommendations which strengthen the connection between officer work and member governance. And this will be brought to members in due course for formal approval. And hopefully, thank you for your support as we work to strengthen our EDI infrastructure and embed inclusive practice across the organisation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Caroline. Does anyone want to ask a question or speak on this? James Tunbridge.
Just one question, Chairman. In the Vice Chair's remarks, Chair of the relevant subcommittee, I feel like that you maybe began by noting, because the meeting had been in court, I had some difficulties getting enough members. Did you say that this would in some way help with the in-court aspect? I didn't quite follow that part. Thank you.
No, sorry, Chairman. The fact that the meeting was in court means that we are bringing it to policy anyway, even though we couldn't get the decision at the EDI meeting.
All clear? Everybody happy with that? Thank you. Congratulations. You're now EEDI rather than EDI. Okay, thank you. Item 5, Town Clerk, please.
Item 5 is a report on the scheme of delegations for the Managing Director of the City Bridge Foundation.
Yeah, this report seeks to make changes to the officer scheme of delegations in relation to the Managing Director of the City Bridge Foundation for onward recommendation to the Court of Common Council, which we will have to formally endorse it. I mean, it seems to me they're quite sensible changes, having read them. So they're recommended by the board of City Bridge Foundation. Hopefully we can approve them. Agree? Thank you very much. Item 6, Town Clerk.
Item 6 is an update on investment governance, a joint report of the City Surveyor and the Town Clerk.
Thank you very much indeed. So this is a report that has effectively been approved at the Investment Committee, and it follows a paper that we received at Court of Common Council back in May, simply confirming to members the full and robust processes surrounding investment governance. However, Robert Murphy is here and I think would like to just explain some of the detail on the report, and we'll take any questions. So Robert, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. As you've already pointed out, this has been approved by Investment Committee, and what this paper is specifically intended to do is firstly explain to members the process that will underpin the delegated authorities for the sale of property. The first paper confirmed that freeholds were in scope for the delegation. This paper also additionally brings leaseholds in scope for this process. Happy to take any questions as they might rise, Chairman.
Chairman, Investment, do you need to say anything, or you want?
Not a question, just to inform you that it's been duly vetted, approved and discussed by our committee, and I believe with Finance earlier this week as well.
That is correct. Finance did. Finance, Rob. Are you all happy to agree that? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Ben Murphy, I beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chairman. I support the vast majority of the paper. I just wanted to get assurances that whilst we're in this sort of hiatus on the complementary land policy, that there would continue to be conversations, particularly on dispersals and other things, with the relevant officers and other teams.
Reasonable question, Robert.
Chairman, thank you. Just to be quite clear, this delegated authority approval only applies to investment properties, nothing else.
Ben?
So dare I ask that currently the complementary land is listed as investment, technically at the moment is my understanding. So that's why I'm seeking the clarity.
Robert?
Thank you. My understanding, and I'm quite happy to go away and check this again, is the complementary land, whilst described as investment, does not fall under the Investment Committee. Okay,
hopefully that addresses that. You're all happy to agree that then? Thank you very much indeed. Town Clerk, item 7, please.
Item 7 is a report on the appointment of additional internal members to the Competitiveness Advisory Board.
So let me say a word or two about this as I chair the Competitive Advisory Board. Basically, as you know, officers have been collating and sorting and scoring the applications we received to join the Competitive Advisory Board following the July paper for expressions of interest, and it went to the entire Court of Common Council, so anyone could apply. We received 5 applications for the 4 current vacancies. All of them, when scored by officers, scored well, and none fell below the threshold for appointment. So senior members of CAB, well, the Deputy Chairman and myself and 1 or 2 others on CAB, felt that it adds good value to have all 5 because they'll all bring something of value to the board. So this report recommends a slight amendment to the terms of reference to allow all 5 applicants to be accepted. And it seems to me to be the best and fairest solution, because it was almost impossible when officers talked to us to decide on one to drop effectively. It gives us a wider range of expertise, and as the paper notes, all the ex officio members, as I just mentioned, support that approach. So that is the proposition before members. I ask you to please agree it. Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to item 8, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Item 8 is a report on faith in the city.
Thank you very much. Now, many of you will be aware, of course, a lot of work has been going on to understand more about faith provision in the square mile, a product of which is this paper presented here to us today. It's been led very, very ably by Mark Gettleson, who I think can explain a little bit more about this report and respond to any questions any members have got. Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Our city is incredibly diverse and becoming more so. Over the past 2 decades, the proportion of city workers who are Christian has dropped from 69% to 35%, while those practicing other religions has risen from 12 to 22%. And as we seek to attract young talent, it's important to note that 33% of Londoners under 16 profess a religion other than Christianity, while just 35% are Christian. So we are dealing in a changed environment. And addressing this diversity is central to our corporate plan, especially its diverse engaged communities outcome, as well as the destination city objective around creating an inclusive and welcoming destination for the next generation of talent. The faith engagement work through the City Belonging Project reflects this commitment. The Bishop of London raised these issues early last year with the policy chairman, citing Canary Wharf's 2 decades of experience in multi-faith chaplaincy. This sparked conversations on how we could implement similar initiatives in a city context. Union Street Consulting, with leaders from the 3 main Abrahamic faiths, 2 of whom are here with us today, Rabbi Alex Goldberg and Sugra Ahmed, received funding from the Sill Neighbourhood Fund to research the faith needs of the square mile. The goal of this initiative is stated as to make the city the most faith-friendly and religiously literate business community in the world. Over 1,000 people participated in the research, and it showed a strong desire for faith communities, prayer spaces, and cultural programming at work. The results suggest that a multi-faith model similar to that operated at Canary Wharf, but tailored to our unique context, would be widely supported. The project has gained backing from a range of faith and political leaders, including the policy chairman and the Lord Mayor, both of whom spoke at the launch, as well as Lord Rowan Williams, who I'm happy to inform the committee has agreed to be patron of the project. The team at Union Street are now seeking funding for a proof of concept from a range of organisations, and the feedback they have received that the formal endorsement of our organisation and of this committee will be crucial in helping to open doors and build confidence. In addition to providing that endorsement, the report recommends creating an advisory group of faith, business, civil society stakeholders to help guide the project's development. Can I say personally that I'm deeply honoured to be given the opportunity to be part of this exciting work that aligns so closely with our values, and I look forward to the committee's questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Now, there are a couple of people who've indicated they want to speak, but before I take them, Paul Martinelli, you emailed in a question on this, which we gave you an answer to. Do you wish to say anything, ask anything more based on the response you got?
Chairman, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course, please do.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Mark. A lot of work's gone into this, but yeah, when I asked officers to give me a costing for that work, I was told it was impossible to disaggregate from business as usual. We're going to take a step today, presumably in a direction which is going to be at no cost, even though we're looking for space within the city fabric. There will be a cost, and I haven't been able to find it yet. So could I just ask members, at no cost, we shouldn't spend too much time on this, if it was to be true. Could I just ask you to look at the appendix, the Faith in the City report briefly? I wanted to highlight just 2 or 3 points and then ask 3 questions if I could, Chair. In that appendix, a couple of things stand out. Not just the logo on the front page, which actually implies it's already an official document. And I'm wondering why we're taking this decision today if we do. The makeup of the city workforce, which is about page 5 on the appendix report, shows that the major change in that makeup between 2004 and 2024 is in the percentage of people with no religion. It's gone from 19% to 43%. So let's not look at the numbers and forget 43% of people at this time, the fastest growing group, have no religion. Secondly, there's a question in there, a post-pandemic faith awakening, ? And it describes the 3 co-committees, 2 of whom are here today. Thank you very much. And it's based on research by an organisation called Union Consulting. And normally when we do this sort of thing, we have an independent consulting company with experience comes in, does the research for us. The 3 directors of Union Consulting, obviously those 3 conveners, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't feel confident about that, Chairman. So not only is there a large group of people who have no religion, when we ask the question in this report, the importance of faith in the city, they quote from the head of the Roman Catholic Church. The one person they quote, of course, is going to say there's an importance of religion in the city. Across the world, they then give in this report 2 examples of places where it's working so well. One of which is the Abrahamic Family House in Abu Dhabi, a place, of course, where same-sex relationships are criminal and LGBT groups are regularly abused. We go in the UK, the Canary Wharf model. On the Canary Wharf site, there's a small sign about Friday prayers. Women are recommended to attend the second set of prayers. What it actually is, there's a sex bar in that service on the first Friday prayer. So we look at the principles going forwards if we're to support this action. And I will ask 3 questions in a minute. Sorry, Chairman. Principles, number 1, can only be advanced if the LGBTQ+ and women's rights are protected in this project. And that actually needs to be on the front page, Chairman. So just 3 questions. Number 1, what are the KPIs and what will be the metrics for success or failure? Number 2, how does this fit in with our P&R away day, 2 days work on focusing our energy at this point into things we're already good at and not dissipating staff resources? And Mark's working very hard on it, I know. And then just lastly, how does this reach everyone and connect diverse communities when it excludes the 43% people in the city with no faith? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Paul. And you've asked me 3 very specific questions. I'm going to take these now before we go on to other speakers. So, Mark, would you respond to those, please?
Yes, I'd like to thank the member for his questions. Firstly, on the DEI considerations, frankly, this is something that will be worked out as part of any pilot. But the approach so far has been of enormous inclusivity. People from the LGBT community, and we actually have statistics on this in the full research document in the appendix, have participated in the research. Any provision that is created will obviously need to balance the needs of different communities. And one of the difficulties, as members will be aware, of addressing the diverse needs of some communities is they can actually, sometimes there can be friction with others. But I take, and one of the advantages that there is looking at the Canary Wharf model. And models elsewhere, though, because we're starting comparatively late with this, we can look at best practice globally. On the KPIs, again, the details of the small scale pilot that Union Street are proposing to undertake have not yet been worked out, and they would work those out with whoever ends up funding them, whether part of that money, for example, comes through continuation funding through our Still Neighbourhood Fund, and whether from philanthropic bodies that they are in the process of bidding to carry out that work. But no doubt, as the rigorous research that has been undertaken so far, that there will be clear scores for what effectiveness looks like. In terms of focusing, we have our corporate plan. There is a clear corporate plan outcome around diverse engaged communities. Communities of faith have long been a challenge to address for us as an organisation. Any other local authority is able to pick up the phone to leaders of faith groups within their local areas, such as local mosques, gurdwaras, mandirs, and so on. We don't have that in the square mile. This helps us provide a framework at not no, but at limited direct cost to our organisation to allow us to fulfil those objectives under our corporate plan, as well as our statutory objectives under the Equality Act to foster good relations. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people of individual faith communities contained within city workplaces. This gives us a way of reaching them and fulfilling our statutory obligations. I hope that is helpful, Policy Chair.
Paul, okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a number of speakers now. So I'll take Ben Murphy, followed by Henry Colthurst.
Thank you, Chairman. And I find myself in the rare position of sort of having concerns about this report, actually, Mark. My primary concern is the sort of split between church and state, and I use those in loose terms. I think, you know, we spent a lot of time, as Paul just alluded to in the PNR Away Day, talking about why we are having to do everything that we are doing. And this seems like a significant add-on for little benefit, which could be done by others. And it's interesting that the Bishop of London is turning to us to try and do these things as well, when the church also has resources to be able to do this. My primary concern is the statements that were made at the start are just based on 1,000 people in a survey of pretty engaged people with an interest in that issue, when we have a much wider constituent base to consult with on some of these things, if we really are to drive resourcing around them. My question, therefore, is why us, why now, and why here?
Okay, do you want to take these as you go along, or do you want me to get 2 or 3 in?
I think it would probably be helpful if I took them
As you go.
along.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. First thing is, we are not proposing to run this. We are simply helping and endorsing it. And in terms of obligations that we already have around community engagement, so far this process has made everything we're seeking to do in the faith space a lot easier. It has made that a lot more straightforward. It has given us something to talk to communities of faith in the square mile about. So it isn't about our direct delivery. It's about using our convening power to support corporate plan objectives, city belonging objectives, and so on. In terms of the sample size, 1,000 participants is one of the largest I've ever seen for such an activity. We often struggle to get more than a few dozen people to respond to even short consultations. Something like 885 people responded to a 15-minute online survey. More than 100 people attended either in-depth interviews or focus groups. So there is an interest there. And actually, this just drawing on the question around why isn't the Church of England doing this? We have that neutral convening power. We not only have the reputation. If people are going to the Church of England to do this, they expect it to be they will expect it to be church-led. Our ability to help endorse and convene this is significant. And frankly, we won't need to do very much of the work ourselves because the funding will be sourced externally.
Thank you. Henry Colthurst, followed by Tom Slay.
Thank you, Chairman. I echo the words you just heard about the question about the role of church and state, which I think are relevant. I'm also surprised that the strapline doesn't include the word tolerant in there, which seems to be much the most important word that we should be looking at when thinking something like this. But what really worried me was the comment that we want this to be an official project of the City of London Corporation. The word project brings with it an implication there's a cost involved. Everything I'm hearing is that there is a cost involved. And what worries me, why we haven't got the funds within City Fund to support a new project. I don't think we're being honest to ourselves if from everything I'm hearing that there is not a cost. And the last thing we want to, in the wake of what's happened to us in the past, is to be loaded with something which then the rest of the world expects us to carry on subsidising for time immemorial. So my question really is, what is the realistic cost expectation now and in future? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Henry. Yes, would you like to respond, please, Mark?
The proposal before us is whether to formally, or before members, is whether to formally endorse the idea of a pilot. We would not be funding that pilot, and it would not happen. We would become one of the organisations that support this work. It has been made very clear that funding for that pilot is available and has been and bids have been put into that work. In terms of the actual direct cost to us, it is to some extent officer time, but that officer time with the community engagement team is already being spent on engaging our faith communities within the square mile, and this is a very efficient and effective way of delivering that. We've already had a number of events held at limited cost and to some extent no cost to our organisation through this programme. But us giving that endorsement would add weight to its success. We're not talking about direct delivery from us as an organisation.
Tom Slade, followed by Jason Groves.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, as a person of no or little faith, except in your leadership, Chairman, whilst this may not entirely be for me, I fully support it. I support it because I think clearly we're talking about a significant number of people who could be engaged with this, and part of our role and responsibility is to engage with that enormous workforce of close to 670,000 people in the square mile. To Mr. Murphy's point about anti-disestablishmentarianism and the separation of church and state, I mean, it does exist, but of course the Lord Mayor has his own chaplain every year. We maintain a church on these grounds, and we have a good relationship with the 55 churches in the square mile already. And so I'm not concerned particularly about that. I'm reassured, Mark, what you told us about the funding of it. I think it's innovative to have a subscription model, and I do agree with the idea that by formally adopting this, it gives it weight and makes it easier to deliver as well. On the point about finding space, Mr. Martinelli, and there would doubtless be costs to that. One thing I would say is we have a very strong pipeline of new developments continually coming up in the city. We have a policy already that if they are more than 10,000 square metres, we expect them to provide cultural provision. It is my view that cultural provision, the perimeter of that would include this kind of activity. So it may well be that you could explore finding a partner in the development community to help host this as one example. So I think it's very positive. I think it's forward thinking. I think it's a good way for us to do something for a huge segment of our constituents, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. I don't think there's any response needed to that because that was not a question. So we're going to Jason Groves and then Shravan Joshi.
Thank you, Chair. Those members of this committee that work in the insurance industry will know that this week is the Dive-In Festival, the 11th Dive-In Festival, which promotes greater belonging and a wider drawing in wider pools of talent in the global insurance industry. It's one of the great success stories in this area. Started in London and now in 40 countries with participants in 100 countries, drawing in over 40,000 people interested in a whole range of topics in areas of diversity such as gender, on sexuality, disability, veterans issues, a whole range of issues. And this has been growing over the 10 years of its history. One of the things that we found most difficult, and I chair that festival, one of the things that we have found most difficult to talk about in all of that time is faith. Part of what we talk about in this area of belonging and talent is the ability to bring your full self to work, and that you're a much more productive member of your company and your team if you're able to bring your full self to work. A big part of what makes up a lot of people's whole selves is their religious belief. But one of the things that I found talking to companies all around the city is they find this issue incredibly difficult for all the reasons that Paul talked about, that Ben talked about, that Henry talked about. This is a very difficult and complex issue to find some way to talk about in a workplace. And yet, undeniably, it is something that is an important part of what goes into the makeup of a lot of people that work in the city. There have been other initiatives tried in this area. The Three Faiths Forum, which was originally set up by, or Faith and Belief Forum, as it's now called, set up originally by Sir Sigmund Sternberg, tried to launch a project to find a way to get companies to be able to talk about faith in the workplace. And because it lacked the convening power and the contacts in the city, it was a project that floundered. So I find myself thinking that this is something that I know that companies would like to engage about, have great difficulty finding the language to engage about it. And it seems to me that the success of the City Belonging Project, which I think we can all agree has been one of the best things that the corporation has done over the last 2 or 3 years to really engage particularly with our worker and resident community, that this seems to me to be a logical extension of this. Now, it's a difficult issue, and I don't doubt that. And the things that we've heard today show that there is difficulty, there is uncomfortableness about talking about faith in the workplace. But it seems to me like this proposal and this pilot is something that could help take that forward, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Shravan Joshi, followed by the Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a piece here around social inclusion that we need to bear in mind as well. You know, the makeup of city workers has changed dramatically, and we need to reflect that in the policies that we have. It doesn't mean that we haven't had it before, that we're now doing something different, that it's wrong. It's not. We're adapting to the society around us, and I think we have to be flexible and accommodate that. And to run a pilot like this, I think, with very little risk to us, I think is exactly what we should be doing, to make sure that those workers and, you know, international workers or workers of different faiths who come to the square mile feel welcomed and don't feel that they have to leave their faith at home when they come to work. That this is an inclusive space that is welcoming and accessible to all, especially after we've just talked about creating equity in our EDI unit. I think this is part of that formula, and we should embrace this kind of work because it fits in so nicely with the other work that City Belonging does. It's not extra to that. I think it fits in a lovely way into that groove, and on that basis, I will be supporting it.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, followed by Jaspreet Hodgson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think it'd be really curious if we did not support this. We run events for and take into account and do work around people with disabilities, the LGBTQ communities, those from different ethnic backgrounds. It'd be very odd if we weren't doing something that also recognised faith. I think the second thing is we do a lot in the city around bringing faith leaders together. We have the slightly curiously named Bishops and Archbishops dinner, but it actually brings multi-faith people together at Mansion House with the Lord Mayor. Some of the best city events celebrate or bring together multi-faith leaders, including recently the event at St Paul's for the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 bombings, which had many of the faith leaders present. This is a pilot. It is low cost. I really think we should be supporting this wholeheartedly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jaspreet, followed by Keith Bottomley, Deputy Bottomley.
Thank you. I just want to say I went to one of the events when it started. I remember it was a Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and I was really surprised to see how packed it was, and just the diverse discussions. Also, just a bit on some references to no faith. I found it really interesting of all of the groups, how they were talking about how they were conversing with everyone in the city and those with no faith. So I think just because it has faith and its tone doesn't mean it's not reaching out beyond that. So my quick question was, it was just under the legal implications. It talks about the data and how it's held. And I know you're saying that actually this is just a bit of admin support. So how does it work in years to come? We're going to say step away and it becomes something of its own. Are we holding that data and then the this convening pilot then has to go and acquire the email addresses and data separately? Thank you.
Could you answer that, Martin, please?
Very happily, Chairman. Obviously, you cannot get more sort of sensitive special category data than data around people's religious faiths. Should this, we will need some kind of data sharing agreement where users consent to their data being shared with whatever organisation is spun out of this. Currently, it is any data being held as support of this project is being held securely, but as it grows, we will need to come to exactly those agreements you highlight.
Thank you very much. Peter Dunphy, followed by Alderman Hales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This does make me a little uncomfortable, not in terms of supporting the initiative, and I'm a huge supporter of the City Belonging project and the various networks created there. What gives me discomfort is what appears to be an official connect, and I know that Mark said that this is something we're supporting, it's not something that is our own creation. I feel that the wording should reflect that, and in particular, and I know that we shouldn't make amendments on the hoof, but there is a way of doing this, particularly at the top of the summary, page 47. I think it should say this report supports faith in the city. And at the top of page 48, endorses faith in the city, but removes as an official project of the City of London Corporation. And at the top of page 46, removes as an official project of the City of London Corporation. So it's something where we support. It's not something that we own. It's not something that we've formally adopted. Now, my proposal as to how we should deal with this is that if the committee is minded that my suggestion is a good suggestion, that it be delegated to the chair and deputy chair to reword it to that effect, and we go ahead and support it on that basis.
Thank you very much. We need a second. If there's a second for that, Tim Hales. Let's take Tim Hales because he's the next speaker, actually. So, Tim, you can second and speak at the same time on the amendment.
Thank you.
Chair, look, I agree with all of the comments that members have made. This is a complicated topic. As far as the official bit goes, a reference being made already to the Archbishop's and Bishop's dinner. We do actually have an official church over there called St. Lawrence Jury, and we have historically very strong connections with the Church of England. And you know, I'm openly gay and I'm a practicing Anglican, so that's where I'm coming from. I support this. I do think that the questions that have been raised around benefit in kinds and costs are entirely legitimate, and I have repeatedly stood up at this committee and banged away about benefits in kind. So I do think, Mark, we need to not be on a slippery slope here. I think that the pilot's fine, but I think we really need to get our arms around what that might mean in terms of resource and commitment going forward. And I support Peter's, I'll call it calibration, Chairman, because I think that's the right way of putting it.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to vote in just a moment. The Vice Chair wants to speak, and then I'm going to move the vote on the amendment. And depending upon whether or not that is passed, of course, what will be the substantive motion. So I now take the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. And really, this is part summary in terms of the EDI perspective rather than necessarily my comments. But I'd like to thank Mark for the work that he's done on the paper. Those of us that have been around a while, this has been a long time in the making. And I think presents the fact that it sparks such debate shows that it's brought thoughts together that have been bubbling around for really very many years. I do have to admit to not recognising the headline in the otherwise very good article in My London yesterday, which I don't know if others of you saw, which talked about this paper as putting forward a Deliveroo prayer service, which I thought was quite neat, but nothing like is actually described in the paper, which I think the phrase "faith without walls" is actually a very good description of what it is that Mark's trying to do here, which is utilise our convening power, our facilitating power, to really help put a structure and a framework around something that is incredibly difficult for people when they arrive in the city to sort, and reflects in a way the model of the concierge service that we're setting up for the business community. So whether there's some overlap there or not, I don't know. In terms of EDI, we are discussing this at EDI next week, and very much from the angle that having a framework will allow access for everybody to be able to, if you like, find some sort of concrete starting point, some sort of spot of acknowledgement of where they may go to for help, resources, worship, whatever it is. I have to add, as chair of the suicide prevention group, the other interesting aspect here is the aspect of loneliness and the reasons why some of our data in that area seem to point towards the transient community that are in London for a certain period of time, sometimes a fairly short period of time. Don't want to go into that in too much, but certainly anything that I feel that can help us tackle the whole isolation and loneliness that is there in the business community is hugely important for us to be there in that space. And the other thing is just obvious: we cannot exclude the faith community and take every other community into account, which somebody else expressed very beautifully. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. That concludes the debate, members. I'm now going to ask the Town Clerk just to explain the amendment that's been put by Mr Dunphy, seconded by Alderman Hales, and then we will vote on the amendment. And depending upon what happens to that, we will then move to the substantive motion.
Thank you, Chairman. So as members, we have an amendment, as the Chairman says, moved by Deputy Dunphy, seconded by Alderman Hales. On the screen, I've got the recommendation. So I just wanted to clarify, as in standing orders, that the exact wording amendment is correct. So it now reads on the second bullet point that members support the adoption of Faith in the City and removes the as an official project of the City of London Corporation.
Peter?
So the final recommendation would be supports Faith in the City, hyphen with a vision, etc.
Yep.
And Alderman Hales, is that your second?
Alderman Hales, is that your understanding? Second? Yeah. Okay, and members are clear on the amendment. It's up on the screen. Those in favour of the amendment, please show. amendment is carried, substantively carried. We now have the substantive motion, which is the amended original recommendation that you've just amended. Those in favour, please show. And to the contrary? One. Then that is carried. The amended motion is carried. And thank you for a very interesting and debate that we've had around the matter.
Thank you,
very
Chairman.
much.
Can I just confirm, Deputy Murphy, doing your name recorded in the minutes? No. Thank you.
Let's move on then, if we may, please, to item 9, Town Clerk, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 9 is a report of the Executive Director of Community and Children's Services on a proposal for delivery of the North East London Rough Sleeping Prevention and Recovery Grant.
Yeah, this members.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt you. Just mention that the appendix for this is marked as non-public. So if any members wish to discuss that particular appendix, it's on yellow paper in the main pack. Please let us know and we can discuss it in a non-public session.
Yeah, so all clear that the appendix is non-public. So this asks our approval for the City of London Corporation to act as the lead authority, commissioning body and administrator for the Rough Sleeping Prevention Recovery Grant on behalf of the North East London sub-region in a similar vein to what we already do for other services. So it's an extension of what we do. It does seem to me, I'll be honest, as quite a sensible suggestion, especially considering that funding of this proposal, which the Chancellor will like, is entirely covered by the government department's Rough Sleeping Prevention and Recovery Grant. So are there any questions or comments, or members happy to approve this? Ben Murphy.
Sorry, just one question, which talks about the officer that may or may not come across. I was just trying to check if that officer doesn't come across, will we pick up the cost for that, or will that come out of the project cost? Thank you.
Who can answer that question? Yes, please. Yeah, there are questions.
Thank you, Chairman. That would be covered by the grant. That wouldn't be picked up by us. Thank you.
Okay, and members happy to agree it? Thank you very much indeed. We move on to item 10, Town Clerk.
Item 10 is the annual report of the panel of independent persons.
Yeah, this presents the activity of the panel of independent persons since May 2025. We get it annually. It has again to go to the Court of Common Council as the panel does not have a direct reporting mechanism. We are also asked to approve an uplift in the daily attendance allowance for the independent persons from £300 to £312.30, which the Chancellor tells me we can afford potentially to do. Both officers and our Member Development Standards Committee are in support of the proposal uplift. Are you happy to accept the report? And the Chairman of the Finance Committee.
I've got no problem with this, Chairman, but I slightly get fed up with these requests. If we have to go through an annual process of increasing charges, fees by inflation, what we did with the members' allowance is an awful lot of work for not much value. And I would much rather personally suggest we just agree a figure at £325 and freeze it for 3 years. I just think that then at least it'd be so much simpler. I don't know if you want a formal amendment to that, but I'm happy to do whatever you think. I just think it's cleaner and simpler and we have to be efficient.
Well, there were quite a lot of hears around the room, and I think that means that probably, unless anybody gets violently disagrees with that proposal, that's what we would want to amend it to. 325 for 3 years. 325 for 3 years. Gone. Agreed. Great. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Chair. Right. Item 11 and 12 are both for information. Policy resources contingency discretionary funds. You know, that's a regular report that we get. And of course, a report on the decisions taken under delegated authority or urgency powers. So we therefore move, Town Clerk, to item 13, which is questions on matters relating to the work of the committee. We didn't receive any, so actually there's nothing to do there. 14 is any other business that the chairman considers urgent. I do not consider any other urgent business in the public part. So we move to item 15, which is the exclusion of the public. Are members happy now to exclude the public? And in so doing, may I thank them for attending our meeting this afternoon. Can we now please take that link down and then inform me when we can continue, Town Clerk, please.
I confirm that the live stream is no longer happening.
And then we can move forward, Town Clerk, to item 16, please.
Item 16 is the various minutes, starting with our non-public minutes from July.
Any comments on members on accuracy of the non-public minutes of our July meeting? Seeing none, happy to agree them and to note again the other minutes that are there. So we now move to item 17, Town Clerk.
Thanks, Chairman. Item 17 is a joint report of the Chamber and the Executive Director Environment on advertising income.
Yeah, this is very important. It's part of our wider income generation working party, which I chair, and has already had its first meeting, about to have its second meeting. I think the first meeting, the initial meeting, actually was a very good one, and there were lots and lots of good discussion and debate on this very important subject that, frankly, we have been putting off for far too long, in my opinion. And one priority we identified was that members needed a proper understanding of how we could introduce and increase advertising in the square mile. And the working party instructed officers to go away and ascertain the necessary governance mechanisms needed to achieve this and report directly back to this committee with its recommendations. So the report before you members sets out an approach to pursuing advertising opportunities. And I think Ellie, and Katie are going to potentially talk us through it. Scott. Ellie, where's Ellie?
Yeah.
Ellie, would you like to just?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the report sets out, as you know, it's been a long.
Could you, I'm sorry, I'll ask you, would you mind standing up so we can see you?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I'll stand for everybody. Yeah, the report sets out a long debate that's been had over advertising, and it looks at we've gone to a significant milestone where we've understood the approach should be that the City Corporation should be an applicant to the local planning authority in that function. And we've gone through exploring a number of ways we could approach that, and we've made a recommendation as in the pathway. We've set out the pathway that we should be exploring. So advertising specifically, we're talking about out of home media, which is talking about outdoor advertising. So I just wanted to make that point, and that is specifically talking about digital infrastructure, so 6 sheets embedded into the highway